Good morning and welcome to this week's edition of the Dialogue. We have already started the countdown to the beginning of the new year, 2025. And we now look back at the year 2024, especially how politics evolved during the year 2024. Looking at the big events which stood out during the year, we can talk about the scandals, the prison visits, and of course, the sanctions. We remember the US sanctions that were imposed on the Speaker of Parliament on alleged cases of graft. We can also look at the cooperative funds scandal, where several members of Parliament were sent to Ruzira prisons for embezzling funds that were meant to boost cooperatives. Also, during the year, we can also talk about the top KCCA officials who were also sent to prison for allegedly criminal negligence after the Chitezi landfill tragedy. Many more issues to talk about. As we close the year, there were new formations that were launched in the politics of Uganda, and many more issues. To do that, on the show this morning, of course, the real, the usual culprits. Dr. Gerard Wanzala is here, Richard Baguma is also here, but also Comrade Daniel Rugarama. Welcome to the big show, the Dialogue. Let me introduce the gentlemen. Comrade Rugarama, I'm happy again to have you on the show this morning.
Good morning, comrades and my esteemed dear viewers. It is always a pleasure being invited here. I'm looking forward to closing this year with this big dialogue.
Thank you. Richard Baguma, always a pleasure to have you on the Dialogue. Speak to our viewers.
The Almighty God, as always, is the first one. And we hope that, as always, through His grace, we shall end the year. It's been another yet good year. I seem to have had a lot of the year, although we meet only on Saturday with Rugarama and Werike and you, Apollo. So I want to wish the viewers and ourselves a wonderful end of the year and a beginning one. Yeah.
We are here in Ntinda, specifically Ministers Village Hotel in Ntinda, and I remember this week, Richard, you hosted a training workshop about the Sustainable Development Goals. Quickly.
Yeah, the Apollo, it's what we were doing is like this program. We have held various trainings and orientations for journalists, for civil society, in work in collaboration with government, especially the Office of the Prime Minister and the UN agencies, on the Sustainable Development Goals. And that's mainly one of the reasons is we were reporting voluntarily as a country on where we have reached on the Sustainable Development Goals. So Apollo, you and your great team of media people have been so supportive in this work, and we are very grateful.
Thank you. And last but not least, Dr. Gerard Wanzala has been away for a while, but happy to have you back on the Dialogue.
He has money.
Thank you very much, Apple, and good morning, our viewers. And who am I not to thank God? Of course, I should emulate my elder brother, that he has kept us on air, alive, safe, up to the end of the year. So as we celebrate Christmas, I want to wish our listeners Merry Christmas, our viewers. Rugarama, you want to put me in trouble. I don't have money.
Must have been looking for money.
Why is everyone running away from money?
You know, sometimes Uganda becomes so small and people have to move here and there to to bring in more resources so that the BOP accounts can balance.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Now let's kick off the big show. Dr. Weruhe, I've highlighted some of the stories that possibly could make 2024. Well, we may have another edition to wrap up the whole year, but let's start from here. And I've talked about the scandals, the sanctions, and of course the prison visits by some of the big government officials. But I didn't talk about the coffee debate in Parliament and lately the cash haze at Bank of Uganda. I don't know what is that event that you think may have stood out in 2024 as far as politics is concerned.
I don't know if I'm limited on choices,
No.
because a lot of issues that happened during the year, and unfortunately, what you're picking out, most of them are not really good for the country. But particularly, I want to point out the issue of coffee. For the first time in a long time, I saw Ugandans living, discussing very petty issues and being concerned with issues of economics, issues of production, issues of control of resources, on who controls coffee and who is getting the subsidies to control the coffee sector, and who is being honest and who is not, who is dishonest, and then who understands the coffee and who doesn't understand it, and whether those who cultivate the coffee are the only ones who have the right to talk about it, or also others who are involved in other economic activities. So for me, it moved Ugandans from simply discussing petty things to being concerned about how policy influences their welfare and their livelihood. As you know, one of the roles of the executive, or it's called the president, is the welfare of the citizens. And so it's not direct that the president will come and put money in your pocket, but usually it is the policies that are generated by the government, and of course also support of strategic sectors like energy, like infrastructure, roads, to ensure that there is a trickle-down effect. When a policy is enacted, there are strategic actions that are implemented by government, and then a citizen can have impact in their pockets. So for me, the coffee debate was really one of those issues that stood out. But also, I will wrap out, because there are issues you have pointed out.
Before you run away from the coffee debate, you said for the first time Ugandans were discussing a matter of national importance and which touches directly their livelihoods. But was the debate genuine? Was it devoid of sentiments and well, can't we talk about the outcome, the end game?
Of course, there were a lot of sentiments, some of which were tribal, but you know me, I live in this country, and I know that while we brag a lot that Uganda is united, there are a lot of tribal sentiments within our society. Just this morning, someone was addressed on a forum in the Republic of Chirinya, where I live, and someone was referred to as Mkoko by a friend, and then it has sparked a lot of things out of control. I'm saying, but me, I got married there, but I was also referred to as a Mkoko, that he has married a Mkoko, but I was not angry, because these are mythical things of maybe a wild beast, which maybe did not even exist, which scares children. So I saw some tribal sentiments come up during the debate, but of course, if you are a good-looking Ugandan, you would look at it from the issue of economics. Economics, of course, there are those who say dominance, but I don't think there is a particular tribe that say we want to dominate the coffee sector. So those came up, but at the end of the day, as they say that time is always the best judge. So we who observed, who participated, I think it is important that we give it time and we see what the actual objective was.
Wow. Let me now bring in Richard, and then you also pick your event that you think may have stood out in 2024. He talks about the coffee debate. Do you think it's one of those, events that stood out in 2024?
Actually, for me, I think one of the most impactful things are around the conduct of the first son. I think it was very interesting to see the way he was communicating,
The tweets.
And the impact they were having with us, with other countries, and the approach that therefore the father, who is also the president, did. But also very interesting in that for me is that all of us are kind of being taught to be very mindful not to make a comment on any of the things related to him, because then of the consequences. So that for me is a development that is quite intriguing, because it is in the political and the military realm. Coupled with that is then the Pilau episode. I think it is one of the most interesting developments. I don't think we have ever seen anything like
PRU.
Yeah. And so I think looking at the internal landscape, I think that was one of the very significant things that we need to pay attention to. The other one is not just coffee, because you see coffee, where did coffee come from? Coffee came from the rationalization process.
Yeah.
What is interesting is that the rationalization has actually been happening. Yes. You see, the creation of some of these agencies was actually a rationalization process. That's what is not talked about. That for these agencies to be created, in itself was a rationalization process. That at that time it was assessed that in order to galvanize delivery by public institutions, you needed to create specific agencies for specific functions. And if you look at rationalization, for example, from the energy sector, we had UEB. UEB was rationalized into UETCL, UEDCL, and UMEME. So when the rationalization continues, when it reaches the next stage, then it brought all the things that Dr. Werihi has been talking about, and degenerated to an extent into tribal sentiments. That is why, you see, that controversy has quite quickly fizzled, because it could not sustain itself. The real issues were not being talked about. We had diverted to petty issues, and it couldn't sustain itself. Coffee is here. Coffee is not going away. It's one of the most important crops for decades. And even going forward, it still remains one of our
strategic crop.
Yes, very strategic. The other thing for me, Apollo, was the impact of the conflict in Ukraine.
Oh.
You know, the impact on our local and regional
economies.
Yeah, but also the realignment of our political and diplomatic positions. So yeah, you see, these some of the things that we seem sometimes not to pay a lot of attention to, I think has been interesting. Finally, for me, Apollo, has been the impact of the issues of global warming, the climatic change, repeated floods, the impacts on our bridges, and the economic impact therefrom, the migrations that these are forcing, the calling to our national preparedness for any disaster, and so these have been for me quite impactful, and because they have been more frequent in 2024 than previously, so I think these things have been impactful.
Thank you so much. And Richard raises very pertinent issues, not only pertinent, but very rare in such a debates, issues of climate change and others. Comrade Rugarama, 2024 is just a few days to go, and we usher in 2025. What events do you think stood out in this year
Almost
in the realm of politics?
What is interesting is that even issues of economics spill over into politics. So it is very difficult to draw a very clear distinction between politics and economics and social life. Nevertheless, 2024 has been punctuated with quite a lot of things. A great number of them have been expounded on by my colleagues, Dr. Oile and Senior Comrade Baguma. But suffice for me to say I was struck dead by the sanctions. Not that it was the very first time that America and Europe, Western Europe, has been sanctioning individuals and countries on the African continent. But the arrogance with which they do it, especially when they sanctioned the speaker, and I have always said, it's not that the speaker, our speaker, Triple A, is not without fault, or maybe she wouldn't have been sanctioned. But when you look at the fact that around the same time, I think, they had unilaterally, that was America, removed Uganda from the list of those benefiting from AGOA. You get the impression that even the sanctioning of the speaker and these other ministers was, after all, not in good faith. It's not because they felt so sad that certain things had happened in this country attributed to the speaker and the other said ministers, that therefore America and Europe felt that they should do something about it. It gives you the impression that this is the usual conceptualist arrogance against us, which smacks, of course, neocolonialism. And that therefore sends us to the drawing board that we have got to clearly rely on ourselves a great deal. And when we talk about self-reliance, people think of creating an enclave economy. Not even America, not even China are able to be on their own without trading or working with others. And the argument of self-reliance, which is even contained in NRM 10-point program, is not that you are 100% relying on yourself, no. But even when you have got what the late Chirunda Chivejenja used to call strategic linkages, those ones must be that should they not be there, are you able to live? So the point really with these sanctions that came to the speaker, the ministers, the unilateral removal of Uganda from benefiting from AGOA, speaks to the greater need for Africa to be self-reliant. And it is one of the packages that I give the government of Uganda and the African continent, and with the new leadership now at African Union, that we must seriously guard the interests of Africa against the perpetuators of imperialism. And maybe finally, I looked at apart from, of course, the political developments on the African continent, almost every country you look at, and Uganda in particular, when you look at these new political formations, the emergence of PRAO that Ndugu Baguma was talking about, PRU, and the way it was being run and where it is now. Of course, the coming in of PFF. Now, PFF in full is People's Front for Freedom. Then you look at, of course, the activities of this Bobi Wine political party and what they went through, their political journey in this year. But of course, we must also not forget, in the same light, the wanton grabbing of governmental resources, like it was happening with the cooperatives. You know, when you look at the cooperatives, hitherto the entry of NRM into government, these cooperative societies, especially under Dr. Milton Obote, the UPC of Dr. Gerard. Dr. Gerard, I don't know whether he has ceased being UPC. But I think if there is one thing that we must credit UPC with, it was jealously promoting the cooperative spirit. And I don't know what possessed my government and our leader, His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, to almost do away with the spirit of cooperatives. It was one sure way. And if you are taking anything away from, for instance, if you want to do away with the cooperatives, you look at how the Mbare, is it
Bugisu
Bugisu Cooperative Union is helping out the people over there. So by doing away with the cooperative society, I think it was one of those few moments and low moments that our leadership and the NRM government should admit that they experienced. But at the same time also, we have to note that the kind of revival, if you like, and that it had come up with, and then the money, way of compensation, and then the money simply goes into the hands of the lawyers, a few lawyers here and there, who purportedly were arguing out the cases for the cooperators. Then you look at even including a PS, I think, wasn't Geraldine Sari caught in the web, where the matter is still in court, but I think also this habit of saying that something is in court and therefore we should not talk about it for the benefit of the people. How many of you, by the way, go to courtrooms to listen to some of these things? So I think we have got to do something. After all, taking on my chairman of NRM, he wrote about a matter that is in court, because extensive, and if you get the Fountain of Honor, writing about the civilians being tried in court martial, and the matter is lying at the Supreme Court. I will not say much because my other president of the Royal Society has also responded, so I will leave it at that. But I will simply make a comment that probably my president should have been advised, that is the president of the country, that this should, because now I'm wondering how the principal judge with his members are going to pronounce themselves over this matter, now that the president
has already pronounced
himself over the same. Some of these things really, I get sleepless nights, and maybe that is why I have developed high blood pressure. Because, but anyway, very finally on this, 2024 has been a very trying moment for the globe, because we have had escalations, political escalations in almost everywhere on the globe or planet Earth. We have had the Ukraine situation that Waguma talked about. We have had the unfortunate occurrences in the Middle East, perpetuated mainly by Israel, that Zionist state. We have had the unfortunate unfoldings in Asia, especially in those territories that China thinks they are her territories,
Taiwan.
which I also believe they are anyway. Then we have had situations in Korea. Almost the entire planet Earth has been caught up in a fire. And we also seem to see the superpowers kind of wanting to resurrect the Cold War, which, if we do not guard ourselves seriously and become conscious, I think there is a fear, as I conclude on this, there is a fear that this 2024, if we do not be careful in these dying days, we may be sowing seeds for the Third World War.
Thank you, Comrade Rugarama. Daniel Rugarama is a scholar, a lawyer, but also the chairman of the Pan-African Movement. Well, Dr. Gerard, I don't know why Comrade Rugarama thinks you are no longer UPC, but the issue of cooperatives is one of those issues that stood out and sunk even the key government officials and legislators into prison. I don't know if you think or what you think could come out of it. Could we possibly see a revival of cooperatives? What do you expect? And you can also give us your other event that you think stood out in 2024.
Yeah, thank you very much, Apollo. First, I want to clarify to Comrade Rugarama that I was mentored by UPC, and I'm proud of that background. But I'm no longer a member of the Uganda People's Congress, although I hold the social democratic ideology.
Okay.
We have bought him now.
You are capitalists who want to sell everything and deal with the state with nothing. Me, I don't believe in that. Well,
I actually thought that Dr. Jared was going to say, but once UPC, always UPC.
Life membership.
Well, I think the issue of cooperatives stood out. The reason why it stood out, cooperatives, as we know them, are vehicles for especially rural transformation. They are foundations on which communities collectively can stand and increase production and also accumulate wealth. Because when we do things individually, we cannot raise the capital that is required. If you go to our neighbors here in Kenya, there are so many cooperatives in tea, in what, that are now having even banks, local banks.
Today we have cooperatives in form of circles.
And now that's where I'm coming to. Previously, the only cooperatives that were so impactful in this country were based on economic activity, where members shared a common objective and were involved in a similar activity. For instance, the reason why Bugisu Cooperative Union survived is because the farmers are in coffee. They have always been in coffee. They understand the language of coffee, and their objective is to ensure that they grow more coffee, process coffee, and export coffee, and have money to educate their children and so forth. If you had other cooperatives in Lamu and so forth, some were based on cotton, and then if you came to the urban ones, like Transporters Cooperative, they were based on, if you're involved in the trucks, your business, then you come together and you discuss something that is common. By the way, sometimes you not even just get money, even inputs to support you in the economic activity within which you are involved. Now, the challenge that we are seeing with the circles and why they are not really that transformational is because, one, if you go in the rural areas, for instance, you'd find a circle of a teacher, the teacher is involved, a prostitute is involved, a chapati maker is involved, and so at the end of when they have a meeting, their minds, they don't have a common mind. It's basically an institution where I say you can put some little money, then you borrow money and buy a border and so forth. And then when you look at the interest rates still, you find most of them are charging about 5% per month. If you cumulatively in a year, 5 times
That
12,
will be about 60%.
absolutely 60%. So if you are really getting a loan in your circle at 60% and you're involved in an activity, how much money are you going to make for you to be able to grow yourself? So I think that's the challenge. And also there was a link between the cooperative institutions and the cooperative bank, where the loans within the cooperative banks are much lower. And this is the practice even elsewhere. Even if you go to China, Agriculture Bank of China is the biggest lender to the farmers in China, and actually the interest is very low in the market, but also much lower when it comes to that bank lending to farmers. And then because of, there must be interconnection. You find the commodities exchange helping the farmers to find markets everywhere. If there is saturation here, there's a lot of production, then the commodity exchange helps to market in the neighboring or even globally, so that the excess can be consumed elsewhere at a fairly better price. But I think we are not serious about what to do. Like Comrade Rugarama gave an example. If you are trying, you have accepted that yes, between 1979 and 1986, the cooperatives were robbed, okay? Their assets were lost. Their land was taken. Their trucks were confiscated and maybe used in a rebellion. And then you agree that it is time we revive and
You
compensate.
put up a fund to compensate
Yes.
cooperatives.
But you set up a fund without guidelines, and then all the money ends up in thieving members of parliament with influence, with their friends in the legal what? Fraternity. So that's why we ended up seeing a few people heading to Luzira, and of course we will not see any justice for those people. So at the end of the day, the cooperative mandate, it will just remain as one of the key highlights of 2024.
The key scandals of
2024. But in reality, we won't see. And then the other issue that stood out in the politics.
Maybe some information, Doctor, before we go to the other issue. You see, the concept of cooperatives is that you have got a uniform idea. You have got a similar or the same economic activity in which you are cooperating, in which you are engaged. In this particular case, if we wanted to, for instance, compare the circles with the cooperatives, it would be very difficult because the circles are cooperating. The members of the circle are in what activity? Similar uniform activity. Compared to, say, Bugisu Cooperative Union. You can see that we still have a task. There is a difference. There is a whole ridge that here we have got a cooperative society, like Bugisu Cooperative Union, but no matter the circles that you have, financial circles that you have, they all have different, the members have different jobs which they do. They only meet when it comes to keeping money and extracting money from there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for expanding on that, and that is exactly what it is. The other issue that stood out, of course, is from the opposition side. I remember when the rift started in the NUP, resulting from the 500 million mark, which is now tagged on the Honorable Mpuga. I don't know how we'll address it, but he seems to have been dressed with that 500 million coin. And I remember telling you that where things were going, it was a point of no return. That at the end of the day, the divorce was going to happen.
Was imminent.
Yes, so recently when I saw the divorce starting and moving on perfectly, I was not surprised. However, I would like to comment on whether the divorce, because there was speculation that when he moves out, he will go with a lot of clout and will divide the NUP maybe in the middle, including in the parliamentary group. For me, what I see is I see the Honorable Mpuga moving out as a deflated tire, kind of, on a vehicle. A deflated kind of a tire on a vehicle that you will get a wheel spanner, and then you remove and put a spare tire, and then you continue moving with the vehicle. Because largely, I see him bringing the group of the Holy Alliance. By the way, the politicians who we call the journeymen, they are always on the move. Every time there is a wave or they assume they have lost being part of this, they will move to the next. Today they are DP platform, the next day they are Holy Alliance, the next day
Yeah, TJ.
the TJ, then now the Democratic Alliance. So I think such a group will not take the Honorable Mpuga very far. Reconciliation at the time would have been a better move. But of course, as a practice in this country, we don't have remorse when we do mistakes. We always want to prove a point that we are either too big. But what I know is that the office, for instance, of LOP, you have the clout because you have the office. But once that office has gone, you are not the same. You will not move with the same resources. And therefore, people who pretended to be around you to shield you, many of them
Will run away.
will run away. And so we are going to just see a lame duck in form of DA,
Mpuga
and it will
and
want
DA.
to cling on another group in the coming year.
Thank you. Richard, Comrade Ugalama highlighted the issue of sanctions. Though he presented it and submitted on it in a Pan-Africanist, with a Pan-Africanist lens. I don't know if what you think about these sanctions. I mean, heavy as they were, onto the Speaker of Parliament and several other former ministers, and even General Herero was also sanctioned, I think, in that manner.
Much earlier.
Going forward, what do you see about these sanctions as a highlight of 2024?
First of all, I think sanctions are an important tool for diplomacy because it is economic diplomacy. But also the sanctions that are placed are beyond economic, they are also social, because your family people, for example, those close to you cannot go to the universities in certain countries. But sanctions are another pressure point. Now, like every useful tool in the military, in the diplomacy, whatever, it can also be abused. Yeah, so what has been happening, therefore, for me, is that while there are some human rights violators who should be sanctioned, or where the threat of sanction can moderate the behavior of some people, when you bring them to imposing certain social behaviors, because this is about behavior, this is about homosexuality. If you are using the sanction to impose your behavior on another group because of your claim to superiority, because of a superiority complex in my view, then that's abuse. So like you see, take political parties. Political parties are supposed to be good. They create contestation. They help leaders emerge. But when you find in a polity, there are some polities, there are some countries where all the political parties are directed, formed, financed by the one who is contesting with them. So that becomes shambolic and very busy. So some of these sanctions are shambolic. Yes, they are. So while some individuals have used their offices to violate and abuse the rights of others and even loot or steal or what, but the spirit behind can then not be because of the very glamorous reasons, but to punish those who stand by their communities and societies. So it's a mixed plate.
Yes, I wanted to ask you what happened with the president's letters probing whether the speaker owned a mansion in the UK or not.
No, Apollo, I have a repeated message when it comes to corruption and my president. And I speak now as a Museveniist. That you cannot be severely punished for corruption.
You cannot.
No.
You can get away with it. Let me throw it back to Dr. Gerard. It was so intense that even the president wrote letters, I think even to the authorities in UK, to prove that indeed Right Honorable Anita Monk owned mansions in UK. What happened? Seems
He did not only write letters, but I believe I saw him meeting even the diplomats from the UK. And I want to believe that the president knows everything that is taking place at various levels in respect to siphoning of public funds. Why do I say that? He has been on various platforms celebrating Heroes Day, saying, now we are moving forward, but these pigs who are stealing resources, I'm going to roast them. It means that he knows they do exist. But I want to look at a president as one who is caught in mud. You know, every time you go in the mud, you drive in the mud, and you try to force by engaging another gear, sometimes you can end up digging a deeper hole. And then you'll need either a crane or a breakdown to come and tow you out of the mud. So I believe that the president knows that corruption is being exercised at a most high level in this country, and he knows, but he also knows that sometimes there are, in quotes, benefits. Because what do we see? Every time someone whose name is mentioned as corrupt, what they will do is to go and organize a big event, mobilize tens of thousands of people, cook food and so forth,
In a
and
show
then invite the president
of power
to a show of power
and influence.
So him being a person who loves being in power so much, so at the end of the day, these corrupt people provide a platform for him to campaign. And he has also praised, like in the case of the speaker, that, oh, this is very transformational. He only said, how did you get the money to do all these things? And she said, you gave me some money, and I built a school. From the school I'm doing this. I said, oh, okay, my daughter. So at the end of the day, I think he's more impressed with how you can use your resources to mobilize for him, support for him to stay in leadership, other than fighting corruption, because he seems not to be sure of what is going to happen. And I think this way I agree with sometimes back, the Andrew Mwendas, who used to say that in this administration, corruption is a tool for controlling, it is a political tool for controlling opponents, but also for sustaining power, because you are able to have a few people with money, and these people are able to also use the money to help you protect your stay in power. So I believe that he has the knowledge, because contrary to what some people think, Uganda has a very robust intelligence system. And then the other thing that I always credit President Museveni, the institutions he can created, that if he left them to operate independently, they would get to the bottom of this. But you know what happens? Everyone waits and says, let me wait. What has the president got to say? What has he got to do? So if he doesn't say, hold that one, then you'll find the IGGs. This is in the chair in the office, enjoying the AC. Yes. So it is a political tool. I want to believe so.
You want to believe that it is a political tool?
Yes.
And well, viewers, it is the dialogue, and we are still looking at the events which stood out in 2024 as we, of course, count down to the beginning of the new year 2025, looking at corruption scandals dominating the headlines, but also other issues that we need to look at, including the coffee debate. We will also look at the evolving scandal at the Bank of Uganda. It is not yet resolved as to how 62 billions was paid through Bank of Uganda to undeserving recipients. We still have to look at all these issues. But you can be part of this debate. Send in your messages and observations on what you think are those highlights of 2024. We still have an hour to go, but you can send in those comments. Still on the panel, Comrade Daniel Rugarama, a lawyer, a scholar, but also a Pan-Africanist. Richard Baguma is a communication expert, but a strong advocate for good health and good living. Of course, Dr. Gerard Were Wansala, a public policy researcher, but also an associate lecturer at Uganda Management Institute. Me, the host, Prince Apollo, I now call a break, but we'll be returning after a short while. Don't go away. We'll be returning shortly.
Soul Television, Femunyo.
Good morning once again, and welcome from the break. This is the second segment of the dialogue on Soul TV. My name is Prince Apollo. We have Dr. Gerard Were Wansala, Mr. Richard Baguma, Dr. Daniel Rugarama, and we continue to contextualize the big events of 2024 as we count down to the beginning of the new year 2025. Well, in the first segment, we highlighted some of the scandals, but also some other big events, including the cooperative fund scandal. The money heist will possibly come now. Dr. Were Wansala, we still have an unresolved case of the theft, I can call it theft now, at Bank of Uganda, after the bank officials were directed to pay entities that actually were ineligible to get those payments or to receive those payments. Do you think it could be one of the highlights of 2024 or not?
Well, it could be, though it came at the end, but the fact that it happened at the central bank, I think it made it stand out compared to other forms of corruption, hacking that we have seen happen in other banks. And of course, it raised a number of issues. One was whether we have enough ICT firewalls. But of course, when the investigation started, we realized that there were a number of approvals that happened because this money was anticipated to be going to pay probably creditors to Uganda, people who lend us, or people who the Bank of Uganda has an obligation to. So if it went through a system of approvals, Accountant General's Office, Ministry of Finance, and then someone within the central bank, then it means probably it could have been intentional. But since they have not come out to give us the conclusion of where the investigations ended, because we understand that some people were in detention. I don't know whether they all got bail, but until we get to the bottom of it. But also you take note of this, that when matters like this happen in banks or central banks, because the central bank operates with so many international organizations. They also buy stocks elsewhere and earn money. They also lend to banks. So certain information, probably certain findings, in the interest of protecting the bank, they may be concealed. But then I expect some action which will be taken on the perpetrators of this, if it was intentional from within the government of Uganda.
Richard Mogumba, the investigations are still ongoing, but what we have so far picked is that the Bank of Uganda clarified it that there was no hacking as we earlier thought. And again, these were directives from the Minister of Finance to pay, and indeed they paid. Do you think this can make one of the highlights of 2024?
First of all, the little investigations work that I get involved in, I'm not even sure that it is correct to conclude that there was no hacking. The hacking may not have been at the level of the central bank, but the hacking could have been at the area levels. The ministry, the client, because the client in this case is the government of Uganda. So we are not sure before the investigation is concluded that the computer system of the Ministry of Finance was not infiltrated.
Or to send those directives?
So what the central bank was saying is that if the hacking happened, it did not happen from us. For us, we are clear. But that does not mean that the hacking did not take place. That's one of the things. The other thing is that there is also, of course, talk about insider.
Insider job.
Yes. Now, yesterday I received a request from a friend who urgently wanted 500,000 shillings. From her, the request was from her phone. And I responded and said, no, this is uncharacteristic of you. Can you explain what is your problem, or is it personal? Then the message came back. This is very personal, it's very urgent. So I opted to call. And the person on the other side was not receiving, because obviously,
he wasn't.
I would have had the voice
Right from the owner.
from the owner. And then the person on the other side went on to say, where I am, I can't talk, I'm in trouble, I need the money. And then I knew this man. But it was from her phone. Later on, I called her friend and told her, do you have an alternative? And then she called me, she says, but I have my phone. And I have not sent to ask you. So I don't know who was where, now in charge of her phone.
It could
and
have
sending
been
SMS.
hacked into.
Yes. But she said she had her.
That was a WhatsApp?
No, it was an SMS. If it was a WhatsApp, I would have. Yeah. So when I asked, they said, no, they can take control of your phone. Yeah. And so we don't know what level. What is serious, though, is that then these interceptions can happen at central government level. And then this money gets transferred, because it could have been a larger amount. Yeah, but also the ones who have tried and succeeded could have been doing what we call a dry run.
But
They're actually preparing for a bigger haste.
62 billion is not small money.
Oh, well, I'm talking in relative terms. That's 15 million or something dollars. At the central bank, that's not big money. If you look at the hastes, if we call them that have been done on our banks, Apollo, if the Uganda Bankers Association were to be open and tell you what the combined amount of money that have
commercial
been
banks.
Yes. This year alone, I think we would really start worrying.
Oh.
Yes. And it doesn't happen here only. So we really have a challenge in the financial sector. You see, let me tell you, Apollo, where you know that people have money and their transactions. The newspaper the other day had a headline. I don't know why people don't see these headlines. That Ugandans spend 20 billion shillings every single day on betting and gambling. Do you know what it means? 120 billion in 6 days. in 1 week. And we are talking about, it's for me, people need to contextualize this. That's why I say, yes, it's a lot of money, not at the central government level. But the bigger issue is that if there is this infiltration, then a bigger amount can be transferred to these illegal. They said that this initiation, the process started from somewhere in Bulgaria or wherever.
It's a nation.
Those are the guys who are terrorizing the whole world, by the way. Who are terrorizing the whole world. So it is very important to think about that. The second thing, Apollo, is that while this may seem like this, but we have had the East African community, how many billions were they? There were more than this. We had the public service. I think it was pension. The money was more than this.
Yeah, 88.
So for me,
Pension fund.
these processes need to be looked at. And so when we talk about firewall, it's not just a firewall for internet systems. It's not a firewall for digital platforms. It's also a firewall for human beings. What are the approval processes? And where are the weaknesses? So that we can plug them in. People talked about punishing. I saw one of the members of parliament said, you bring the people here. But are you CID? If the people are already in CID, so you want them to crack them and bring them to parliament, you do what? Yeah, it's questioning for the public, which is okay. It's a very gullible public which may not understand this. But it's a very serious matter. And for me, the biggest serious matter is that these are infiltrated this Israel, and we can lose even more. They can empty our coffers.
There is suspicion that this could be also an inside job, like insider job, like you said. What if it turns out to be an insider job?
What's the difference? We have lost 60 billion. There are some people who are thieves. Others steal mabati, others steal plastics, others steal food, and others steal money, depending on where they are. It's one of those other routing businesses, which must be dealt with. First of all, close the gaps. Close the gaps. Two, punish these people. I am not sure that our law is even very well prepared to punish these kinds of crimes. I'm not sure that
Now
we
have
are
a
up to date.
cyber-
Yeah, I'm not sure how up to date we are.
Cybercrime.
Yeah.
Yes. So what are the punishments? Are they up to punishing, or will guys get away with it? So these are the things we must discuss.
Comrade Rugarama, same question. If it turns out that indeed this is an insider job, will you be surprised? And anyway, won't it be one of the key scandals of 2024?
One of the greatest dilemmas that we have as NRM is fighting corruption. The other aspects as contained in the 10, 15-point program, NRM has made very serious strides, and some actually greatly achieved, like peace and security, and discrimination part of it, although that also is a pocket in corruption. But the corruption, when it comes to corruption, especially specifically financial related, we seem not to be getting our act together. Even when we have got a multiplicity of institutions that have been established, some of course not with such a legal caution, but they are there nevertheless. We seem to be not getting it so correct yet. I would not be surprised, maybe, but it would be very naive of me to be shocked that somebody can engineer something of that magnitude.
Like stealing from the
and
central
nature,
bank.
like stealing from the Bank of Uganda. We have reached a level, unfortunately, where some of our colleagues are not ashamed to do such high-level, shameful acts like stealing at the level of Bank of Uganda, even the commercial banks that Ndugu Baguma was talking about. We've had cases like Equity has been hit by so many millions through its mobile banking. You know, because it is a private company, you seem even to pride in those who have done it, and you wish that you were a member of
Actually,
the team.
I remember Richard Baguma reminded us of the fake notes that were found in
Yes,
a vault of the ATM.
you can imagine ATM vault. That money comes from the bank itself, and they simply put a portion of it, meaning that there's somebody in charge of the ATM has connived with the supervisor and the entire team,
And introduced
they
fake
have
notes.
introduced the fake notes. And who is going to listen to you when you present fake notes? Like now we are moving into
Which you
Christmas.
received from the bank.
Exactly. Whom are you going to explain to that this money that you have presented to a butcher somewhere is actually from the ATM? You see? So it becomes, some of these things, by the way, like they have, we have said.
That's how shameful we have become.
Exactly, and they have
no, shameless.
shameless, and they have created laughter. These are very serious issues, but here we are, and we seem to be on the increase in terms of entertaining some of these crimes. Now, what is of greater concern also,
Finally,
is that here we are, and the crimes are not just what has, that one happened to come into the public domain. What about those which happen and they don't see the light of the day? Now, if the investigative arms have been interested and they are doing some bit of work, will they come up with credible evidence to be able to present a case in courts of law? Because then we would be looking at the judiciary and saying, here you have been given the matter, what have you done? But we seem again, because I think there is a growing fear now that unless something has got a connection with politics, any other thing can pass, because you can imagine somebody that has been, that is involved in stealing close to 100 billion shillings. You, the investigating officer, how much do you have if you were given a small fraction to simply keep quiet? Why do you talk when it is eating time?
okay. Thank you, Comrade Garamandi. Let me hear from you, Dr. Werihe. We've highlighted scandals, we've highlighted bad events.
Yes.
Can you pick of, any good thing that ever happened in 2024? I can remind you that we had the inaugural regional parliamentary sitting in Gulu. A good thing, maybe we, out of politics, we qualified for AFCON 2027. I don't know if you can pick one good thing that happened in 2024.
Well, I don't know whether it's my memory that betrays me, but the negative things seem to stand out a lot. The Chitezi, garbage bearing people.
Now Bulambuli.
Bulambuli, the pavers, people who hit people at night, I think. But of course, the positive, I think, which I saw was that the inflation in the country has been managed. If I'm to go by the information from the Bank of Uganda, and also because of the prospects.
Around 3.7%?
Yes. Imagine jumping from where we were during COVID to there. I think that's positive. And also because of the prospects of the investment in the oil sector and the huge sums that government has invested there, we have seen attraction of FDI, foreign direct investment, and the figures show that there is growth. Actually, in the region, Uganda and Tanzania among the leading recipients of foreign direct investment at the moment, but I know most of it is powered by the anticipation of the oil production, which keeps on extending. I don't know why, but I believe at some point it will. For me, that was very positive. Of course, the other negative issue that we should not talk about, this trend of continuing to subject people to military courts, and then the Supreme Court is sitting with a ruling, the ruling about the same, because as you recall, this issue was challenged in the Court of Appeal, and they ruled it was wrong to continue trying people. Now, recently, in the case of Kiza Besigye, actually the person who led to this case previously is back again. Yet we have just seen the NUP people being subjected to detention by the military, and then eventually persuading them to plead guilty. So we are waiting. I think in 2024 we are putting the Chief Justice and the justices of the Supreme Court on the radar. We are also putting the Attorney General on the radar, whether we are really serious about giving justice to the citizens of Uganda, or we are up to using the military court as a political walking stick to achieve a political victory by suppressing opponents. I think that is very important to recall. I mentioned Chitezi, and we talked about the swift sourcing of a Ghanaian investor.
Company.
Already there is information moving around that actually the president was duped. We talked about, we said, where was this investor standing that immediately people are buried in Chitezi, then the investor is around. So I think
the one who buried them.
now, but where was he standing that he could be single sourced immediately and quickly? And what evaluation was done? Because we want to sustainably solve problems, not for taking photos, pretending we are going to the president just to use it as a way to con the president and get subsidies to do something. So I believe that the lesson from that is that if we want to solve, to get a solution, I think it's good to think through it, have possible alternatives, and that. And then the last one, the president is moving around in what he's saying, an evaluation of PDM. But of course, it's not, it surprises me that if you're head of state and you're jumping from here there in a country of 50 million people, that to see how PDM is performing, certainly you may not get the results. The visits may be stage managed by your handlers, and then at the end of the day, the information that you gather is maybe for the information of the public. I've been moving in some parts of this country, in the east, Busoga, Bugisu, and so forth, and I think some communities, people firmly believe that the president is giving them money to eat for 2026.
PDM.
To vote him again, because they think, why is it coming at the tail end of his regime? And so many are swearing not to ever pay this money back, and I believe like other previous schemes, like Ntandikwa and others, this money will never be returned. Let me be a prophet of doom on this.
Richard, do you find one positive event that we can count on as we look back at 2024?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's
No.
dark and gloom.
Perhaps my number one positive event was President Trump.
Oh,
Absolutely.
bouncing back.
Absolutely. I think it's good for the world that
Do you also have sanctions? Those
President
people
Trump
who celebrated
no,
his return.
no, that's a very small matter.
Eh.
So I think Trump is good for the world. The other things for me is, you see, I sit on the Community Advisory Board for the HIV/AIDS research in this country. You know, we had a major breakthrough in HIV/AIDS treatment. And Uganda was one of the countries on this program. That now we have a drug which is effective that is taken once every 6 months. Yeah.
Injectable cabotegravir.
No, it's not even injectable. So it is even easy to consume.
Oh.
Easy to carry, easy to consume. This is a major breakthrough in our HIV/AIDS fight, that we can now go 6 months, so it's just twice. And Uganda was part, the Ugandan scientists were part of this breakthrough. I think it's going to turn around the HIV/AIDS situation, which has been a problem for about a quarter of a century.
How then Trump comes in?
No, I finished Trump, I went to the second matter, which involves Uganda. The other thing for me that I really look to, I think can be extremely important for the economy of this country is the SGR. Yes, it was commissioned. If really it doesn't become another white elephant, the war style, I think this is a critically important project to revolutionize transport in this country and therefore the economy. The other thing for me is the Hoima Airport.
Oh.
I'm really looking forward to flying on
Kabalega.
that. Oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to flying on that tarmac. I was even asking now the people who fly the local flights to Kisoro and wherever, if they have a flight there, because I think this would be a nice time to launch. I think I have been asked many times. I fly quite regularly. I get asked all the time when I'm booking tickets from outside here, which is the airport of your preference? Because they think that Uganda has
Only
more.
half Entebbe.
And I told them I have no preference. I just have to go. If something happened, it's near Delek, what if it flooded? So for me, it's a significant development, particularly that air transport has become very important cargo-wise and human-wise globally. Yeah, so there are some positive things, Apollo. And finally, for me, it is the census.
Oh.
Yes, that we were able to count each other.
Report.
Forget about some of the things that didn't come out well. That is important. But that we have a census, it's these people who are PhD guys will tell you how critical a census is as a tool of budgeting, planning, of many things, monitoring, evaluation. So I think that also, for me, is important.
Thank you, Richard. And Comrade Daniel Rugarama, pick a positive moment or event of 2024, if any. People are talking about projects. SGR project was, of course, kicked off in this year, 2024, and even Kabalega Airport was launched, though it still handles one side of
Kabalega, is it not cargo, essentially?
No, there's no airport that is for, it's like a road.
Okay. But for me, what comes out really is the Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania jointly being awarded the host status for the Africa Cup of Nations. There are a number of opportunities, of course, that come with that. I don't need
the Pamoja bid.
Yes, emphasize it. My only worry is that even when we cooperated on such a major activity and we jointly won, this was a win for the East African community and it was a win for Africa, emphasizing the element of unity. But when again we spoil it, we spoil the Pamoja spirit with some of these seemingly small things like denying Martha Karua a temporary practicing certificate, then of course limiting the movement of labor and representation, freedom to be represented. If somebody picks on a lawyer of his or her choice, and the law allows such a legal practitioner to come and offer his services to his client or her client here in Uganda, it would look a bit not serious on the part of those who are supposed to issue a temporary practicing certificate like it was in the case of the Law Council. To deny senior counsel like Martha Karua such a certificate, because it goes to the root of fighting what the East African community espouses to achieve. And finally, on the achievements, you know, there are some of these things which are not usually talked about, but you remember in Uganda we had a period of great instability, especially the urban terrorism. And it has not been the case.
This year.
In 2024, we have had relative peace in the city. These bombs that used to go off, save for a
Even
few...
ADF attacks have been...
I think these attacks at the border were in this year.
But very few.
But
sporadic.
limited. Of course, loss of life, even one, is disturbing. But again, when you have got repeated and at a mass scale, it is extremely worrying. So the fact that we have had peace to a great extent, really, throughout the country, almost no urban terrorism, it shows that indeed, like some of these researchers have placed Uganda in terms of happiness index as country number 2, I think globally, speaks mountains. That is yet another achievement for NRM, and no wonder that come 2026, with a few problems that we have had as NRM, we are going to bring back the old man, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as our next president. Forget about, of course, we had a fear of this brother of ours coming up with PRU. We were wondering what was going to happen, and we were also very scared because we didn't know the rate at which some of our members in NRM were threatening to join a pressure group from a recognized, tested political party to a pressure group. We are looking at the development, the political maturity that is talked about in darkness and noon. And we are like, it is no longer relative. It is going to be diminishing.
Thank you.
Maybe members now follow the DNA, not the political party.
So at the end of the day, you can see that when we purge these few things that are disturbing NRM, and they are there, and we also get so serious with promoting the ideology, the NRM ideology, which is basically contained in the 15-point program. And we do away with people who are just praise singers. You know, you don't appreciate the ideology. You are simply shouting NRM or whatever other you are shouting. When we do away with those and we strictly concentrate on delivering services to the wananchi, regardless of whether you subscribe to NRM or not, then I can assure you, and we promote the patriotism and the Pan-African spirit, I can assure you that Uganda is going to be a better place and the continent.
Thank you so much. We can now wind up with your projections for 2025, because it is predicted that it will be a year of serious business in terms of politics. And indeed, what do you think, Gerard, Dr. Gerard, of next year? Are we yet to see more contestations? Are we going to see more political formations being launched and announced?
Yeah, of course, you're right in that regard. Only that when you say that it is going to be a year of serious business in politics, for me there is a way I look at the politics of Uganda. The seriousness on real issues of governance that matter is not reflected anywhere. You'll find people just abusing each other, you know, on Yali do, not Yali day, this one ate, this one does. So, you know, the smaller matters.
What should be
We
the
have-
real matters? Because
Now, like this year, we have nominations next year. This year should have been a collective voice, 2024, where people would demand for electoral and governance reforms that we would see at institutional level, like Parliament taking them up. But next year, don't be shocked to see the name of the Electoral Commission again changing from Independent Electoral Commission to I don't know now what. Greater Electoral Commission. And then we go for
Dr.
election
Gerard,
under that.
I don't know what you
Without-
want them to do. They tabled these demands in Parliament. I think even Honorable Mathias Mpuga offered to table his private members.
Did he have a strategy? He only came in when he was being shouted at over the 500 million and being booted. So he wanted the relevancy by bringing the bills after that. But collectively, what strategy was there? Because some of these reforms are even good for some NRA members or even NRA members. But there is no clear strategy. Previously, if you look at 2016, for instance, although nothing much was achieved, but there was awareness raising by the Citizens Compact on free and fair elections, where we saw political parties under TDA collectively working with the civil society to push and raise the bar. All these years, we're just kunga, I don't know what, PLOU, Namialo, cooking rice in Jinja and so forth. So this is how we have diluted the politics, and the policy now a Thanksgiving, or you come and eat pilau, we thank for being appointed a minister. That kind of politics is not going to take us anywhere. But anyway, as for contestations, next year we are going to see some contestations. We shall see new babies like PFF trying to move around to market themselves. We shall see our group, the DP bloc, who are now under DA, Democratic Alliance, also trying to, because nationally they don't have a belonging. You might see them more rotating around Masaka and some places within the central. We are going to see, I think, with the CDF now being politically active, the current CDF, we might even see now the army, especially the commanding officers, being more involved in the politics, like previously in the 90s, where we used to see military people at political rallies holding guns and supporting candidates. Most likely, it is like to come because the behavior of the head of the army shows so. We are likely to see, of course, sanctions may not. We are seeing a change in Washington, but the EU may sanction more people because of more human rights violations. And then I think in respect to politics, that's what I'm going to see. In oil, we're going to see increased activity in the Albertine. As you know, the pipeline is in progress, and there are discussions between Uganda, South Sudan, Kenya to construct a pipeline for finished oil products from Eldoret and bring it inside to save the roads, to save so the fuel can also come more cheaply, and maybe, of course, to reflect back, there's something positive I did not talk about that happened. We used to tell government that take oil, fuel as a strategic commodity, and probably by taking control, you may have the prices go down. I want to thank UNOC, Uganda National Oil Company, the Ministry of Energy. We saw that now the pump prices are
relatively
a little lower when UNOC took over the importation of fuel and distributing. And of course, even the government needs, that markup the government gets can help government develop other infrastructure projects.
Thank you. Richard, what are your projections for 2025, which is believed it will be a very busy year in the context of politics?
Yeah, because of 2026, it will be a very busy year. The most important political agenda will be the continuance of my president and consolidation. So the most important agenda, everything will revolve around that.
Your
Is
president.
continue staying in power and also the consolidation of his power. The consolidation and concentration.
What is the fate of PLU?
PLU is going to remain.
Dead and
PLU
buried?
is not going to die, no. PLU is not dead. PLU, part of the consolidation in my view, the concentration and consolidation, is to harness PLU as a possible alternative in the transition
Agenda.
Because there's no doubt about in my view, the thinking about the transition and who should come next and what. So I think this is a vehicle that is going to remain serviced, but not fueled, so that it can be fueled and move very fast if it needs to be deployed.
That's bad news for Comrade Rugarama.
No, Comrade Rugarama is a pragmatist. Yes, Pan-Africans are pragmatists. Don't be surprised if Comrade Rugarama becomes the conductor for the PLU bus the next day. If it brings if it satisfies his political contribution. Because Comrade Rugarama would like to make a contribution. So if it is the bus, PLU bus, that will be, it can be rebranded a little bit.
Sure.
But I think it is going to be remain serviced and ready to go except not fueled.
Okay.
And I think all the people around it will be rehabilitated and empowered, given resources to keep moving around. I think so that we'll be having more of the same. I think a little bit more money, not a little bit, a lot more money meant for poverty programs will be for actually political campaigning. So all the schemes will be about what gives electoral advantage. Now what is my focus? My focus is going to remain road carnage. Yes, I think my focus is going to remain on road safety and now water safety. If you look at the statistics of the people who are dying, in my view, needlessly, are the people who are dying on the roads, the adults and the children, our school children, and also the people who are drowning very carelessly. So I think that is not going down at all in the prediction, and for me it's going to be one of my focus, and I invite you guys to be. I also think that there is going to be a bit increased repression. Yeah, so we'll be a bit more in the spotlight for...
That means more sanctions, possibly.
It's a possibility. Yeah, there is a possibility of sanctions. But we are going to be on the spotlight. I think there's going to be a lot more clamping down on those who are perceived or who actually do oppose.
Threats.
Yeah. So Apollo, me and you who are in the media and in civil society, we are going to be serious targets.
Thank you.
So, yeah.
Comrade Rugarama, 2 minutes. Talk about what could be your projections for the new year.
Africa's politics are going to remain relatively for the benefit of going by the blueprint of the one-time Secretary of State, American Secretary of State, as developed in United Arab Emirates. Majority of Africa politics is going to remain a blueprint of the capitalistic West, whereby your democracy is as good as long as the capitalistic West has said so.
No, what are you Pan-Africans doing?
It is work in progress, and I have always told those who care to listen that when we talk, it is not in vain. Otherwise, all these religions would have closed shop and gone away, because however much they talk, sinning seems to be on the increase. So if, for instance, sin was computed on how much you talk, then I think majority of our religious institutions should have closed shop. So what I'm saying is that we shall continue an increase of our democracy, African democracy, being determined more by the Western capitals and making less sense of the Wananchi who participate in the same democracy. We are going to see the Middle East question not getting sorted, but it is not going to escalate.
With Trump?
It is not going to escalate. The reason being, the main factor of escalation has been Israel, and the Prime Minister Netanyahu is having domestic troubles, And I can tell you that he's going to be convicted and sentenced to the 10 years of
By
the
ICC?
crimes. No, not ICC, that is another thing now. Of the domestically, he's under trial.
Okay.
And I'm glad that he has been indicted along with his Minister of Defense, although his Minister of Defense has since left office. And I know, of course, there is no European country that is willing to arrest him and take him to the ICJ, but gladly that at least that statement has been made, the bold statement that was made by the American prosecutor and later on taken on by the courts.
Thank you. Thank you so much, viewers, but a round of congratulatory and best wishes to our viewers. We are heading into Christmas.
Merry Christmas, dear comrades, and a very prosperous 2025. And this goes to our esteemed viewers and the management and the promoters of Salt TV.
You don't have a constituency. Richard Baguma?
The Pan-African constituency, of course.
Yeah, this is just a calendar date, but life continues. So please leave it as a continuing life. Don't leave it as if life is ending with just a calendar date, which was brought here by I don't know who, the Latins or whoever. So please keep safe and keep others safe. I think that's important. Eat, drink, drive, indulge carefully, because the end of the year is not the end of our world.
Dr. Ure,
Yeah, our viewers, it has been a great year being with you. I wish you a Merry Christmas. Please enjoy the festive season, but remember, take care. There is HIV. Don't consume all resources, because January is looking at you, including school fees. So, but looking forward to the next year. Thank you.
thank you so much, our viewers. We've come to the end of this edition of The Dialogue. From me, Prince Apollo, and the production team, thank you so much. And as we head into the festive season, we say Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. To all of you who participated in the program, who contributed and commented in any way, thank you so much, and we wish you all the best. Good afternoon. God bless you. God bless Uganda.